Now, just 1 year ago, leaders met at the Munich Security Conference to discuss the war they hoped would never happen. Amid other global security concerns, Ukraine is set to dominate this year's conference as the anniversary of Vladimir Putin's invasion nears.
At last year's Munich Security Conference, there was still a glimmer of hope that Russia wouldn't attack Ukraine. As Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky appealed for support with a high-ranking audience in Munich, Russia's President Vladimir Putin was amassing thousands of troops at Ukraine's borders. All hope was gone just 5 days later, when Russian tanks rolled into Ukraine. 1 year on, Russia's war against Kyiv is set to be the main topic of debate at the Munich Security Conference. World leaders and security experts will discuss how partners can continue to support Ukraine, also with weapons.
We have to see what is needed. How do we cope with the Russian aggression? And we see that Russia is right now starting an offensive. They pay a very high price, but you can see how much a totalitarian regime is able to continue this ruthless, horrible war. And we have to support Ukraine. And instead of putting red lines, I think we have to see what is needed. What does President Zelensky, what does the Ukrainian army, what does the Ukrainian people need?
But the discussion will also center on the war's consequences for the international order, from the need to reshape the European and global security framework to the growing fault lines between democracies and resurging autocracies.
And joining us now from the Munich Security Conference is our chief political correspondent, Nina Hase. Morning, Nina. Now, Russia's war, as we know, in Ukraine is the main focus of this year's security conference. Can you give us a sense of what and who we can expect in Munich?
Well, this forum is considered to be the most important international security conference, and the organizers are saying that they've got some 150 high-ranking guests from around the world, heads of state and government. The US Deputy President Kamala Harris is going to be here, then the French President Emmanuel Macron, but also high-ranking officials from countries like Brazil or Ghana. There's a representative from China sitting on panels. So this really is a forum where people get together and discuss the most pressing security issues of our time outside of the regular diplomatic frameworks and the strict rules. What is different this year is, of course, that we're just days away from this sad anniversary. The war in Ukraine has been raging for almost exactly a year now. Now, last year, this forum happened just days before Russia launched its large-scale invasion against Ukraine, and the organizers had invited Russian officials in the hope to persuade them not to launch this large-scale attack on Ukraine, to no avail, as we all know. So this year, the organizers say they are not prepared to give Kremlin officials a platform.
So Russia has not been officially invited this year. There will be no Russian representatives in Munich.
There will be Russian representatives, but not from the Kremlin. So the hope is to get in touch with some representatives from the civil society, because, of course, everybody wants to end this war. But people here are saying we need Vladimir Putin to understand that he needs to withdraw from Ukraine and that he is the one who has the ball in his court, essentially. This is a forum where candid discussions can be held in all those corridors of power, some of which you can see behind me, outside of those strict diplomatic rules frameworks. But this is something where the organizers of the Munich Security Conference have been saying, as long as Vladimir Putin is not showing any willingness to discuss just how he is going to withdraw from Ukraine, they don't want to provide a platform for their propaganda because, of course, he has severely breached international law. Now, in 2007, Vladimir Putin was here, delivered a speech where essentially he gave a speech where he accused the US of wanting to create a single polar world under US dominance. In hindsight, of course, this is something where the world could see this as a warning sign of where the Kremlin was headed.
Okay, so Ukraine and the Russian invasion dominating, but can you give us a sense of what other topics will be discussed in Munich?
Well, all the consequences of Russia's war against Ukraine, for example, when it comes to the international food security, but also climate security is going to be on the agenda. Now, some people around the world have been asking, is this forum really something where Europeans are talking amongst themselves? So there is this strong idea that you also get into a dialogue with the global south, because, of course, they are going to become important geopolitical players in the future. Their populations are growing, so it will be interesting to see just how much use all those officials who are represented here will make of the fact that they get to sit down with representatives from India and China, and we can just see that there are lots of bilateral meetings planned between all those officials.
Nina, thank you so much. That's DW's chief political correspondent, Nina Hase, reporting from Munich.